there's this idea, or it's a really false claim that somehow George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna Taylor is not. To reiterate, George Floyd is no longer here. George Floyd cannot receive any type of justice. No amount of protesting, of burning, of rioting, of looting will bring our brother back to us. We need to really be clear when we are organizing in the aftermath of the murder of a black person. We are not hooping and hollering and raising hell, right, for lack of a better phrase, to bring our people back, because they cannot be brought back. It's always telling to see the response from the black bourgeoisie in the immediate aftermath, right, of the death of a black person. It's always quite telling, because you will see for a considerable amount of time afterwards, I would say within a year or maybe 2 years, there is this uproar and there is this outcry. We demand justice, all of these different things. And then sooner or later that goes away. And then it's back to whatever we were doing before this tragedy occurred. Again, this hyperfixation on the messages and beliefs and values and actions of black celebrities and elites is dangerous for the mass progress of our people, and it needs to stop, because you get messages like this, right, from people who believe they are involved and invested when they could not be further from the front line, right? Again, the message, the statement in this post says, y'all are praying for Kanye but joking about Meg Thee Stallion. This is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation. And again, the response to this post was overwhelmingly affirmative. It was overwhelmingly positive. Everyone seemed to agree, right? Generally speaking. Again, it's from my judgment that this is a post that reinforces anti-black misandry, the purposeful erasure of the significance of black male life, even in death, right? George Floyd is no longer here, but his situation is being compared to Breonna Taylor's, and it's actually being, right, upheld as if his situation is better. He's getting justice and Breonna Taylor is not. To be clear, George Floyd, again, our brother was murdered. No amount of demanding for justice, whatever that may mean, will bring our brother back to us. The pig who kneeled on his neck, right, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds was charged with second-degree felony murder without intent, right? And this is important to know the very specific charges, because second-degree felony murder without intent, the key words in that charge are felony and without intent. The Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison, a black man, said, according to Minnesota law, you have to have premeditation and deliberation to charge first-degree murder. Second-degree murder, you have to intend for death to be the result. For second-degree felony murder, which is what the pig is charged with, you have to intend the felony and then death be the result, without necessarily having it be the intent. This is a quote that I'm reading, right, from the Minnesota Attorney General. When asked about the felony in question, the Attorney General responded, we would contend that George Floyd was assaulted, so that would be the underlying felony. So, in essence, the pig who knelt on George Floyd's neck is being charged with assaulting George Floyd, and that assault resulting in his death. You can see, even in the very language, right, of the laws and legislation of this society, black life in no way, shape, or form will receive that unequivocal, right, unbiased, swift justice, right? Again, this is the Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison, a black man, saying, or justifying, rather, the lesser charge of second-degree felony murder without intent, rather than second-degree murder or first-degree murder, right? That's the one pig who was charged. The other three are being charged with aiding and abetting murder, and they all four of them have been fired, right? My question would be, My question that I would sort of pose rhetorically would be, is losing your job for taking a life a true manifestation or a result of justice, right? When we think about the ways in which the law and justice and equality as societal concepts have been constructed and reinforced to negate black life and black male life in particular, when we look at the disproportionate rates of black men who are killed by police, right? The question becomes, is it truly justice when the life of a black person, of one of our people, is taken from them, and the main actor in that act loses their job or serves time in prison, right? They are still alive. So you mean to tell me true justice is when black people are killed and the people who killed them are punished and their life is not taken? That just doesn't add up for me personally, right? And again, this leads to the idea of, back to the original post, right? George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation. There are clear statistics that demonstrate the statistical rarity that pigs are actually arrested, convicted, are arrested, charged, convicted, and actually sentenced and serve time. I'll pull up the statistics because it's too important to overlook, right? So since 2005, this is according to the Henry A. Wallace Police Crime Database. Since 2001, and this police crime database is one of the most comprehensive ones. There are no federal or national level police crime databases. There's no data reporting system for that. All data reporting systems are private and not affiliated with the government, because the government doesn't bother, right, to track police crime. So since 2005, 110, right, pigs have been charged with murder or manslaughter, right? In that 110, 42 have been convicted, 50 have not been convicted, and there are 18 cases still pending. Regardless of the fact that on average 1,000 people are fatally shot by the police annually. And keep in mind, this is shot and killed by the police. So George Floyd wouldn't even go in this category, right? Technically speaking. And the article goes on to state, despite the increased scrutiny on police violence since 2014, when the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the Black Lives Matter movement raised public awareness of the issue, neither the number of officers charged nor the number of convictions has meaningfully increased. The number of officers charged has edged into the double digits in 4 of the last 6 years, topping out at 18 in 2015. But this uptick is too small to be statistically significant. What's more, officers are still being convicted about as often as they are not, about the same rate as before 2014, although many of the cases since 2016 are still pending. So even in the surge in, at least the surge in media coverage of, right, of police violence waged against black people, right, the extermination of black life at the hands of police, even in the national and global awareness being raised, the rates of arrests and convictions of police officers has not significantly increased. So for us to hoop and holler about arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor, we are doing so, we are betting on a losing game. The statistics show clearly, right? It's a statistical rarity that an officer is actually arrested, charged, convicted, and sentenced. It's rare, right? You can look at police crime databases, they show clearly. And again, George Floyd wouldn't even fit in that category, because that category covers those who are shot and killed by police, to be clear. This is important when we engage in these campaigns, if you want to call them that, particularly on social media, whenever it says, sign this petition, repost this post, all these different things, right? And I'm not here to measure the efficiency of the actions people take. That's another conversation for another day. clear evidence and data show pigs are not charged with killing people, right? Not to any statistical significance. So knowing that information, should we continue to go hard in saying arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor? And to be clear, even in that phrase, all that is calling for is their arrest, right? People can be arrested and charges can be dropped. I don't know if in the creation of that slogan that was thought through to merely call for their arrest and not their conviction or their sentencing, right? Again, even if that is true justice in every sense of the word, right? A black person's life has been stolen, and we call for that person who committed that act to be punished. But that punishment does not result in them also losing their life. That just doesn't add up to me personally, right? Now, my sister said what she said. Interesting take, but we can't overlook the blatant disregard for black women as it's shown in both circumstances, even without the comparison. So, in regards to the attention or the recognition given to black people for losing their lives at the hands of police, I do my best to not engage in that kind of a debate or a dialogue unless I'm on the front lines actually protesting and actually mobilizing for those people. Oftentimes what you will have is people will hop on social media and they'll get their thumbs working and they'll say, why aren't people going hard for this person? Having never actually set foot, right, outside and into an actual protest for that person's life, right? I have yet to come across a person who claims not enough attention is given to black women who said, oh yeah, there was a protest organized for this black woman and nobody showed up. Until I come across that account, I won't be able to adequately assign credibility to these claims of attention not being given to certain segments of our population, because there's no way to prove that. There's no way to actually measure attention, right? And I don't look to names trending on social media to measure, oh, okay, their name is trending on Twitter, they're getting good attention. That isn't how I measure, right, the constructive action being taken on behalf of a black person, right? But at the same time, this is not in any way intended to negate the loss of black female life at the hands of police or any state-sanctioned institution, not at all. The primary motivation for this discussion here, again, is in reference to this post, right? And the dangerous rhetoric that is ignorantly digested and exchanged, right, across social media platforms, right? To say that this is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation, is to perpetuate the dismissal or the neglect of black male life in particular and black life in general, right? Now, on the notion of attention and recognition, according to the Henry A. Wallace, according to the Henry A. Wallace Police Crime Database, right, along with the database the Washington Post keeps up, and this information can be found with a simple Google search. In the year 2020, so far, 8 black people have lost their life, right, to police, right, have been fatally shot and killed. 8 unarmed black people. And to be clear, if we're gonna hoop and holler and say Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter, whether they are armed or unarmed, period. In the year 2020, 8 unarmed black people have been shot and killed by police this year. Breonna Taylor is one of them. Again, George Floyd, technically speaking, does not fit into that category. He was not shot and killed, right? 8 people. I'm going to read these names. listen to these names and think to yourself, how many of these names do I actually know, right? So since Breonna Taylor was murdered on March 12th, 2020, right, there have been 4 black people, unarmed black people, killed by the police, all of them black men, right? So I'm gonna read the names now. Donnie Sanders, 47 years old, March 12th, 2020, Kansas City, Missouri, the same day Breonna Taylor was murdered. Michael Johnson, 31 years old, March 20th, 2020, Tallahassee, Florida. Sean Lee Fior, 24 years old, May 1st, 2020, Seattle, Washington. And Maurice Gordon, 28 years old, May 23rd, 2020, Bass River, New Jersey, right? So after Breonna Taylor was murdered, 4 other people, unarmed black people, all black men, have been fatally shot and killed by police. Do we know their names? Have we even heard a peep, right, on our timelines about any of these cases or any of these people? We need to really ask critical questions to ourselves first and foremost, in terms of how little do we control the media that we consume, right? To what extent do we actually control the information that we digest and we exchange? Again, 4 unarmed black people, all of them black men, have been shot and killed by the police subsequently, right, to the case of Breonna Taylor. How many of those names do we know? And then prior to Breonna Taylor, we had William Howard Green, 43 years old, January 27, 2020, Temple Hills, Maryland. We had Jaqueen O'Neal Light, but was 20 years old, January 29th, Graham, North Carolina. Then we had Barry Jadouse, 27 years old, March 6th, 2020, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. How many of these names do we know? How many of these names have we ever heard? Out of the 8 unarmed black people shot and killed by the police this year, the one name that we know is Breonna Taylor's. And this is just in this year. It's July. The year is halfway through. And out of the 8 people, the one name that has gained recognition, right, is Breonna Taylor's. And again, we're not in a competition for recognition. But again, ask yourself that critical question. What are we really talking about when we make statements like, this is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation? What is the objective behind such a statement? We need to really grow more critical, again, of the way that media is engineered to not only heighten our exposure to black death, right? Black male death in particular. Not only the exposure in that, but also the erasure, right, of black life. Of those 8 people, do we know those 7 other names? It's these kinds of critical questions that we really need to ask ourselves first and foremost, and then ask, our peers, right, as a collective. Now, on this notion again of this is why George Floyd is getting justice, Brother Sean Reed, and his full name is Dre Sean Reed. Brother Sean Reed was shot and killed by police May 6, 2020. Brother Dre Sean was shot in his back 18 times while streaming it live on Facebook. The pigs who shot him can be heard on this live stream laughing, insulting Brother Reed. Once they shoot him and Brother Deshaun Reed is lying on the ground, you can hear one of the pigs say, "It's gonna be a closed casket, homie." He wasn't black. He was a white pig, right? Essentially joking that they just shot and killed this black man and intentionally did so that his family couldn't have an open casket at his funeral. He was shot and killed May 6th, right? Almost 2 months after Breonna Taylor was murdered. Have you seen Brother Reed's picture on social media? Is his name trending? You can't even find information on the status of the pigs who shot him. I'm sure they're back out on the streets working. this is what we talk about when we say the black bourgeoisie is not to be trusted. For somebody, whoever it is, right? Black woman, black man, black, right? Black, non-binary, right? For any of our people to make such a disrespectful and dangerous statement like this is an agent and cannot be trusted whatsoever with any types of movement, right? With any type of mass movement of our people. Y'all are praying for Kanye, but joking about Meg Thee Stallion. This is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation. It really shocks me how it's almost predictable now the extent to which black celebrities and entertainers expose how ignorant they are to the conditions of black life on a mass scale. Right? To say that this is why George Floyd is getting justice, to imply George Floyd is actually receiving justice in death? George Floyd is dead. He cannot come back. What kind of an argument is being asserted here to suggest Breonna's killers are still on vacation? When statistics show in the single digits are pigs actually arrested and convicted of murder since 2005, right? Despite 1,000 people being fatally shot and killed by the police annually. Not only to read, to agree with, and to exchange a message like this is dangerous. Because what it demonstrates is how out of touch you are with not only the grassroots boots on the ground organizing that real black people do on a daily basis, it also demonstrates how ignorant you are to the enemies and the enemy institutions and the ways in which they inflict violence on the masses of black people. Right? Kanye West and Meg Thee Stallion, their physical lives are not in immediate danger of being lost, at least, right? And this isn't to downplay the trauma that Meg Thee Stallion experienced or the lack of mental health that Kanye West is experiencing. This is to expose the danger behind such a gross statement as this. And there are consequences for speaking on the names of people who are no longer here in ways to try and serve a particular end, right? So you're gonna throw up a statement on Instagram saying, oh, y'all do this. This is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation. We're talking reckless about ourselves. How disrespectful to George Floyd, how disrespectful to Breonna Taylor, to their families, to make such a statement like this and actually believe you are spitting facts, to actually believe that you are about black empowerment and you are for black people and you are for justice and equality. Again, it happens over and over again, right? As soon as a black person loses their life too soon, right? You see the exposure that takes place among black celebrities and entertainers. And not just black celebrities and entertainers, but some of our peers, some of our own fellow black people. It's a sick cycle, right? You see the real ignorance and lack of care and empathy we have for our own kind, for our own race, right? I look at this statement from this black woman as a not only an act of violence, but a clear flag being waved. And the flag says, I don't give a darn about y'all, right? I'm simply posting certain things to gain temporary social media clout and to front like I care, right? This is a clear message to me, at least, that this sister who posted this is not to be trusted. This sister does not have the best interests of our people at heart and never will, and needs to be treated not only as an agent but as an enemy. And to be clear, at no point in time in our radical organizing history have we always all been on the same page. There has always been dissension from within, There have always been agents and infiltrators and enemies among our own people. And they are either dealt with accordingly, or they bring down organizations and they bring down movements, right? Our generation today needs to ask critical questions. Are we willing to accordingly deal with agents and enemies within before we think we can organize and go fight the enemies without, right? Are we willing to look at a statement like this, right, and condemn everybody who subscribes to it, right? Of course, we make room for teaching to be done, only if people are willing to be taught. When you look at a statement like this, I'm telling you, when I first saw this, I was truthfully overcome with anger, with frustration at not only the anti-black misandry present, but the ignorance and the underlying evil that has permeated the minds of some of our people, right? The self-hate and inferiority that has infested itself in the minds of the black bourgeoisie, in the minds of black celebrities, right? Again, I'm going to read these names because they're too important. So again, this year, 2020, 8 unarmed black people have been shot and killed by the police. 8 of them, right? William Howard Green, 43 years old, January 27th, Temple Hills, Maryland. Jaqueen O'Neal Light, 20 years old, January 29th, Graham, North Carolina. Barry Jaduz, 27 years old, March 6, 2020, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Breonna Taylor, 26 years old, March 12th, Louisville, Kentucky. Donnie Sanders, 47 years old, March 12th, Kansas City, Missouri. Michael Johnson, 31, March 20th, Tallahassee, Florida. Sean Lee Feuer, 24 years old, May 1st, Seattle, Washington. Maurice Gordon, 28 years old, May 23rd, Base River, New Jersey. 8 people. How many of those names do we recognize? This enemy is so wicked, they have us fighting each other for recognition of death. Arguing with each other over whose death receives more attention. For any organization, for any person who calls themselves an organizer or a leader of black people to go out and actually subscribe to the notion that there's an imbalance or an inequity and attention being given to black people that have lost their lives. Those are people that I do not trust. So you mean to tell me you are willing to organize resources and actually engage in actions to fight for more attention at black death? If you are not interested and organized around the preservation, the protection, and the advancement of black life, what are you even organizing for? What are you leading? There's no way to seriously engage in a dialogue about who is receiving more attention and actually believe that you are a person who is down for the mass interests of black people, of African people. It's sick the way our enemies pit ourselves against each other. We are actually engaged in arguments and debates over the attention or the lack thereof that is given to our deaths. We are actually fighting each other for more recognition, for more attention, for names to be trending in social media. Names that represent the fallen bodies of black people. We're not even fighting for the attention of living black people. What does that say about the machinations of our enemies and their agenda, right? And their interests in our systematic subjugation, in our oppression, right? In our extermination. Again, 8 people, 8 unarmed black people have been shot and killed by the police this year alone. Of those 8 people, Breonna Taylor is one of them. Can we name one other name? Can we name 7 other names? It really is a demonstration of the critical study first and work second that needs to be done to not only adequately prepare ourselves to face our enemies, but seek out, right, and deal with accordingly the enemies within our race. Because again, this post was posted by a Black woman. And again, it isn't about her being a woman, it's about her being Black. It could have been a Black man, it could have been anybody Black. The fact that they posted this and thought it was a real word, a real gem. Y'all are praying for Kanye, but joking about Meg Thee Stallion. This is why George Floyd is getting justice and Breonna's killers are still on vacation. Kanye West and Meg Thee Stallion are still alive. Breonna Taylor and George Floyd are not. What kind of justice is it that your life can be taken from you, but don't worry, you will be served justice. Those who took your life will be punished. They will be sent to prison. Still living. We really need to critically think about what it means to demand justice, what it means to organize around Black people, to engage to seriously engage in debates about the amount of attention, right, those of our people get in their death. What other race of people do you know that actually argue among themselves about the attention that they receive for the death of a woman of their race or a man of their race? Point out one other race of people that does that actually sits with each other and organizes, they organize special discussions and panels saying, this is why this person's death needs more awareness. We're the only people that do that, to my knowledge. And that's a signal to the horrible conditions we find ourselves in, right? So, again, it's been statistically demonstrated that the likelihood of a pig being arrested, first, of a pig being fired from their job, arrested, right, tried, charged, and convicted, the statistical likelihood, right, is slim to none, in single digits. Again, despite the fact that 1,000 people on average are murdered by the police annually. With just that fact, we should be moving beyond arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. It isn't enough. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing today to protect, to secure, to preserve, to advance Black life? Not debate each other on who's not getting attention and who is, right? Whose death is forgotten, whose death is trending. That isn't an actual demonstration of being interested in Black life, right? It's very flawed. Flawed at best, right? Dangerous at worst. So I just, wanted to talk about that. Because again, it's posts like these that really send me, because it demonstrates a disconnect, right, between Black celebrities and entertainers and the masses of our people that really needs to be further exposed and that needs to be acted on by the masses of our people. We cannot continue to look to any of these people for any sort of guidance whatsoever, because they are not invested in the interests of the masses of our people, right? If they were, they wouldn't hold the socioeconomic positions that they hold. So in our organizing, in our studying, we need to be sure that we are not focused on anything other than the preservation, the protection, and the advancement of Black life. What are we doing to protect black women? What are we doing to protect black men? What are we doing to protect black non-gender conforming, right, non-binary folks? What are we doing to protect black trans folks? Not fighting for attention or recognition, right, at our black deaths. We go hard for our people, right, with the objective that we will advance our interests, we will advance our life, not get names trending on Twitter. If that's your objective, please stay out of our people's way, because you are a cancer to our struggle, and you are an obstacle that, if not removed, will destroy our progress, our advancement, and you will be handled accordingly. So again, I just had to hop on real quick and discuss that, because it's too important to obscure, or to not apply pressure on. Recommendations would be, right, peep the messages being conveyed from your favorite celebrities and entertainers, right? Or even not even your favorites, just all of them. Look to see what they are actually talking about, right? If they are talking at all. And we should never find ourselves in any sort of exchange over the attention or recognition or the lack thereof at the death of one of our people, because there are far too many names that we do not know for us to actually sit and think we are in a constructive situation, right, fighting for the recognition of one name that we know or two names that we know. So with that being said, peace, black power to family, to African black people, to our enemies. Just wait. We're getting in position day by day. We're working forward today. If we don't get it today, the next generation will. If they don't, the next generation will. We're working for the people. We will be free.